hot Friday evening in Abuja, the sun was just before the horizon, leaving an orange patina over distant blocks of the city. Having packed up for the day at her workplace, Amaka, a 32-year-old civil servant with the Federal Ministry of Finance, recessed into her house. It had been a long week that left her feeling drained, coming off back-to-back meetings and all the paperwork and stresses this tireless job brought. Amaka sighed with relief as she packed up her things and turned off the computer. And now that the weekend had come, she wanted nothing more than a night at home away from the mess and noise of work. She used to always take a cab from the office that would drop her home in Woods, but today she was too tired to wait for one. As she stepped outside, the evening breeze provided a brief but welcome respite from the heat. Just as she began walking toward the road to hail a cab, a familiar voice called out to her. "Amaka, you're going my way, ABI. Let me drop you." It was Chinedu, a colleague from another department. Chinedu was known for being friendly and sociable, always eager to help out a colleague. He had given Amaka a ride once before, and the journey had been pleasant enough. Amaka hesitated for a moment. She had planned on taking a cab, but Chinedu's offer was convenient, and it would save her both time and money. "Okay, Chinedu, thank you," Amaka replied with a smile. Amaka climbed into Chinedu's car, a well-kept Honda Civic, and settled into the passenger seat. The air conditioner was a welcome relief from the oppressive heat outside. As they merged into the busy traffic, Chinedu turned on the radio, filling the car with soft high-life tunes. They chatted easily about work, office gossip, and their weekend plans. Chinedu was his usual jovial self, cracking jokes and making Amaka laugh. The ride seemed like it would be a pleasant end to a tiring week. But as they approached Woods, Chinedu suddenly turned off the main road. "Chinedu, where are we going? This isn't the usual route," Amaka said, a note of concern creeping into her voice. "Oh, don't worry, I just want to quickly stop by my cousin's place. It's just a few minutes away. I promise it won't take long," Chinedu said casually, not taking his eyes off the road. Amaka's unease grew. She had heard countless stories of people being led astray after accepting rides from acquaintances. But she didn't want to seem rude or paranoid, so she forced herself to relax and trust Chinedu. The roads grew narrower and less familiar as they drove further from the main streets. The bustling city sounds faded, replaced by the quieter hum of residential neighborhoods. Amaka could feel her heart beating faster. She glanced at her phone, contemplating whether to text a friend her location, but she didn't want to appear overly dramatic. Soon, they pulled up in front of a modest bungalow surrounded by high walls and a rusty gate. The area was quiet, almost too quiet. Chinedu turned off the engine and looked at Amaka. "I'll be just a moment. You can wait here," he said with a reassuring smile. Amaka nodded, though she was far from reassured. As Chinedu got out and disappeared behind the gate, she couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. She glanced around, noticing that the street was almost deserted. The few people she could see seemed to be minding their own business, not paying attention to the car parked on the side of the road. Minutes passed, and Chinedu didn't return. Amaka's anxiety grew with each passing second. She tried to convince herself that everything was fine, but her instincts told her otherwise. She picked up her phone and texted her sister, Ada, letting her know where she was and who she was with. Just in case, she whispered to herself. After what felt like an eternity, Chinedu finally reappeared, but he wasn't alone. Two men, both in their late 30s, accompanied him. They didn't look like friendly cousins. Their faces were stern, and their eyes darted suspiciously around the street. Amaka's pulse quickened. She watched as Chinedu and the men approached the car, their conversation too low for her to hear. When Chinedu opened the driver's door and got back in, the men stood by, staring at Amaka through the windshield. "Sorry for the delay, Amaka. Let's go," Chinedu said, his tone unusually flat. Amaka's instincts were now screaming at her to get out of the car, but before she could act, the two men suddenly opened the back doors and got in, one on each side. "Who are these men, Chinedu?" Amaka asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "They're just friends. They need a ride too." "Don't worry, we'll drop you off first," Chinedu replied, but his earlier jovial tone was gone, replaced by something darker. Amaka knew she was in trouble. She had no idea where they were or what these men wanted, but she knew she needed to get out of that car, and fast. As the car started moving, Amaka's mind raced. She quickly sent another text to Ada, "Help, something's wrong. Call me now." Within seconds, her phone rang, and she answered, trying to keep her voice calm. "Hello, Ada." "Yes, I'm almost home," Amaka said, hoping her sister would understand the urgency in her tone. She heard Ada's voice on the other end, filled with concern. "Amaka, what's happening? Where are you?" "I'm with Chinedu, but I'm fine. I'll be home soon," Amaka replied, trying to emphasize her words. She hoped Ada would catch on and alert someone. The men in the backseat exchanged glances but remained silent. Chinedu kept driving, his face tense. Suddenly, Amaka spotted a police checkpoint up ahead. It was small, just 2 officers casually waving cars through, but it was her only chance. As they neared the checkpoint, she made her move. "Chinedu, stop the car. I'm going to be sick," Amaka shouted, clutching her stomach and leaning forward as if in pain. Chinedu, caught off guard, slowed down but didn't stop. "What's wrong, Amaka?" "I need to get out now," she insisted, her voice rising. The officers at the checkpoint noticed the commotion and signaled for Chinedu to pull over. Reluctantly, he complied. As soon as the car stopped, Amaka threw open the door and stumbled out, making a beeline for the officers. "Please help me," she gasped, her voice trembling with fear. "These men. I don't know them." The officers immediately sprang into action, surrounding the car and questioning Chinedu and the 2 men. Amaka stood by, trying to steady her breathing, relief flooding over her. After several tense minutes, the officers ordered Chinedu and the men out of the car. They were searched and questioned on the spot. It turned out the men had dubious backgrounds, and their presence with Chinedu was anything but innocent. Chinedu himself seemed to have been caught in something far more sinister than a simple lift. Amaka was shaken but unharmed. The officers took her statement and offered to escort her home, which she gratefully accepted. As she sat in the back of the police vehicle, she couldn't stop replaying the events in her mind. She knew she had been lucky. Her quick thinking and the timely intervention of the police had saved her from what could have been a very dangerous situation. When she finally arrived home, Amaka found Ada waiting for her, worry etched across her face. Amaka embraced her sister, grateful to be safe and alive. In the days that followed, Amaka found herself reflecting on the events of that night. She had always considered herself cautious, but the experience had taught her to be even more vigilant. She realized how quickly a seemingly harmless situation could turn into something perilous, and she vowed to trust her instincts more in the future. Chinedu and the men were eventually taken into custody, and while the full extent of their intentions was never revealed to Amaka, she knew enough to be thankful she had escaped.